Good morning. Welcome back to the Through the Ages World Championship, stage 5 lower bracket. And yeah, we see after my last win, my position is quite good, but nothing is settled yet. Nickelberg has one game less also, so that's to consider. But also, everyone can still win this group. Bright Futures only 9 points behind, and there are still plenty of games to be played. So let's go right into the next game. It's a 3-player game that I play with Yaba and Nickelberg. I'm in the second position. And yeah, let's take a quick look at the leaders and wonders. And we see a Suez Canal in the game. Always kind of the first thing I look at. There's no Hollywood, button internet, no space flights, but the Manhattan Project there is Bill Gates, always notable in 3-player, 4-player, one of the best leaders, I think. There's Coubertin, that's to be mentioned. In H2, a lot of culture and not a lot of military, so it's possible to go greedy in this game. Probably there's also a Gandhi, and looking at HA and at the row also there's plenty of good wonders here, but also nice H1 wonders. But this row doesn't look like a wonder skip. If we look at this, I think Pyramids and Library, obviously the best, but there's a Suez Canal and then Colossus also quite good. And yeah, let's continue with the game. So we actually have every culture leader, right? There's Shakespeare, Gaudi, Cook, Bach, Darwin. Insane lineup here. Let's see how that goes. Java starts with Alexander here. He will get another wonder, or a wonder anyway, and it's just a good start here for him. No other leaders in the row except Omer. And I decided to go with Urban Growth and Ridgeland. I don't need to grab a wonder for 2. I'm looking for Pyramids or Library. But even if they will be taken, which is possible, I can still take the Colossus or maybe even Stonehenge. And Nickelback starts with the Pyramids. Interestingly, I think the Library is the best, but they are close. Pyramids and Library are probably pretty close in value. Java elects Alex, builds a mine, and takes the library for 2, so is willing to pay that extra civil action. And I think, yeah, there's arguments to be made that, as I said, Colossus is not that bad here with the Suez. And I think Columbus also is always a good reason for the Colossus. But you cannot. It's a question of taste, maybe, whether to take Colossus or Library here. And I can go for Hammurabi here, just a super good leader. One of the leaders where it doesn't hurt too much to take him for 2. The other option would probably be to not take a leader, but I think Hammurabi would still have his value, even if you take it for 2. And I go for the mine, and I do go for the Colossus. It's not the best synergy, actually, with Hammurabi. If I want to set myself up for colony game, it's not that perfect to not draw, two cards, or even possibly 3. But I think it's still okay. One possible plan is to just go for the H2 colonies, actually, with possibly, I think at that point I already look like at Columbus, and possibly play Hammurabi pretty long, since there's also not the best leaders to play early on. Da Vinci, yes, but questionable if I get him, whether I get him. And then, yeah, playing Hammurabi long into Columbus, into hopefully an early H2 colony is a possible way. And that's where Colossus shines, with these just 3 draws. You can, if you're a little lucky, just draw a good colony in the first draw and then have the perfect transition leader. Let's see. Hammurabi is definitely a leader that you can play for a long time. Nickelback takes Aristotle, also the pick I would have made, and even goes for Da Vinci at 1. So he doesn't want to give Yaba, who will use Alexander, one of the better H1 leaders in general, and also in this lineup here. Yeah, totally understandable to quotations mark hate draft it, but he doesn't also give up that much. He can still play his mind. It does cost a civil action, but I mean, right now 2, but he will have to take another leader anyway at some point, so he doesn't lose that much. He could populate and elect Aristotle now, but I think it's worth it. It might be worth it to take that away from Yaba. We see Yaba going for the Alexander, for the yellow cube. So does not want to keep him for some time. He populates twice and takes knights. Yeah. Doesn't want to build the philosophy now. Would have also been an option. I also kind of like building library first. And then you are somewhat more flexible. You go to the important 2 signs. Of course, 3 signs is better, but the difference between 1 and 2 signs is bigger than between 2 and 3 signs. And then you are kind of flexible. You can consider printing press. It's actually a decent printing press for a 3-player game. As we said, I think you can be quite greedy in this game. But you also have the option to put people in the military. Maybe he even already has a medieval army, or you can draw one and he just has an extra dude. And then you can get by with the 2 signs income. Yeah, for the price of maybe even threatening an aggression or something. So yeah, I also often skip this philosophy if I have the library. And I see the immigration. It's, I think, pretty equal. Yeah, seeding is generally good, and there's no clear indication that it's not a good idea to seed it, so I do it. 2 signs has been revealed. I actually, interestingly, start building the Colossus and take irrigation. And I think the reason for this is similarly to the reason that Yaba didn't build the philosophy, is that I'm looking at this printing press. Possibly. I'm not certain. I'm not a huge fan actually of this turn. I take irrigation for 2. I think I've mentioned 1 or twice now. That is probably not that important in 3-player also. Maybe a little more than in 4-player, because in 4-player there's 3 selective breedings, and 3-player only 2, so it's a little different. But yeah, I take irrigation for 2 and frugality, and maybe I could have just taken the printing press if my plan was not to go for the philosophy here. Unclear. Not a huge fan of this 1-stage Colossus. There's already 3 wonders here, so I will not get any of those. So there's no argument to be made that I was looking to take another wonder. Yeah, actually a little unclear. The most probable reason I can think of is this printing press, but yeah, let's see. Nickelback goes for Aristotle, populates, takes knights for 2, yeah, and also skip the philosophy. Open borders agreement between Java and Nickelback. And Java finishes the library and takes Swordsman. So it's not about the printing press here. It's about setting up an aggressive potential and having an extra population for that. So yeah, after this open borders and the fact that he took knights and swordsmen and not the printing press, I think I might consider not going for the printing press here. And actually that's what happens. I just decide to build the philosophy instead of the printing press. I do want to go to 2 science incomes, just too important. I do have the Colossus to stay safe somewhat, but I don't want to be extra greedy to take the printing press here. And maybe that's even arguable. Maybe this is actually a game where it would have been okay. It basically costs me 2 extra civil actions and 3 science. Yeah, but this might be a game where it's actually okay. With Shakespeare in game, Darwin, Gaudi, a lot of heroes with printing press synergies. But there's no Hollywood. There's an internet, but there's no Hollywood. Hollywood's also kind of an important factor in the decision of if printing press is good or not. So yeah, but I decide to go for the philosophy. I do understand this decision, even now. And I do take the iron. It's quite an early iron. I can still populate and take a Richland, probably. Cannot use the frugality, but it doesn't matter because I can still populate next turn and take this Richland. Yeah, it's all good. And I draw. It's nice to see. Makes it less likely that one of them has the tactic. I cannot get knights anymore, but still nice to see that. Nickelback finishes the pyramids and takes monarchy. It's still also quite an early monarchy, and especially with the pyramids, you can play that for a pretty long time. So understandable. He's a little unlucky maybe that there was no alchemy yet. There is no alchemy yet, so he would like to swap, but also Aristotle is also doing the 1 science per turn job, or possibly even more now with the pyramid, so it's not even that important that he swaps. Java seeds, development of politics, and Java goes for Barbarossa here. So he clearly has some desire to build up some strength. Only builds 1 warrior for now and takes an irrigation for 2. Yeah, irrigation is kind of important with Barbarossa. It's pretty good if you have Barbarossa. So, or let's phrase it like that: without food income, Barbarossa is kind of bad. So it's important to take that. And on my turn, I decide not to seed. I don't really want to seed foray or raiders. Cultural influence could be, I could think about that, but I don't really want to advance the event deck that much right now, and that's why I decide not to seed. I develop iron and can upgrade once, and I can still take Machu Picchu. That's always a pretty good wonder, especially if you have iron and irrigation. And yeah, we see by now how good Hammurabi is. This extra civil action is just super, super valuable. And that makes Hammurabi just one of the best A leaders. I draw a colonization card even. That's pretty neat. Development of markets revealed, and Nickelback goes for the monarchy peacefully. Yeah, a revolution was not really an option, or at least I don't like it. I mean, he could have avoided the mega corruption by building a warrior, but then he would still have problems next turn, probably, or possibly. So, yeah, he has a good science income with Aristotle and later Da Vinci, so why would he? Revolution. Goes to populate, sometimes builds the lab, takes bread and circus. We have seen combatants in the game, but also bread and circus is just here on one, and it's a good option to have in hand. And he does have the other medieval army. That's a little sad, so they both will be able to go for medieval armies if they want to, also if Yaba wants to. Nickelback has already shown that he wants to. Yeah, and this looks pretty good. He has a good leader combination with the Wonder. Does have an early monarchy. The only thing he does not have yet is the H1 buildings or technologies in economy. I think he really wants an alchemy going soon. But other than that, it looks really good. Development of settlement has been revealed. We see knights. And Barbarossa does his work. He still decides to go for the lab here. But he basically has all the setup to build another knight, possibly with the Breton circus here. Or he has failings even. Maybe he does not even want to build the other knight. But still goes for the Breton circus and the breakthrough. So does put a little pressure. So the defense card also comes in handy in that regard. Possibly. I do decide to seed now the cultural influence. Columbus, as I mentioned, was always kind of the plan here. The other leaders are already gone, and Michelangelo does not look like a great option. And so it's Columbus. It's a little gambly, but I do think it can work out, especially with the Colossus. And I upgrade mines. I did build a warrior, right? So I can actually fend an aggression, possibly. For free even. So that was a pretty good event for me. The free warrior. And for the last selection, I take breakthrough. There was nothing else I can do, and it's a pretty good card. I even draw another defense card, so that's pretty neat. Even possibly for territories. Nickelback takes the alchemy. It even dropped on 1 for him. That's also a pretty good timing for that. He also takes the iron, so Aristotle did a lot of work, a lot of value, gave a lot of value, and Nickelback starts with the alchemy here, goes to 5 science income, and it all looks pretty good for him. Good turns. Yaba tries an aggression. They even have the open borders, so Nickelback did need all those 3 defense cards, and he had them. So the raid would actually hurt. It's always pretty impactful if you destroy an alchemy, obviously. So good for Nickelback to have drawn those defense cards. And Yaba goes for the Breton circus, possibly to prepare for a rebellion. takes EG for 2. Yeah, there would have been some options here. Code of Laws would be an option, going for the important 5th civil action. But like this, in 2 turns, he has enough signs for a possible Conmon. That's to be considered. So it's really not that clear if I would go for Code of Law here. And Monarchy is pretty late, and there's 4 governments. So I also think that Monarchy is should not be the highest priority here, or even actually quite a low priority. And if he goes for Code of Law and develops it now, his last turn would be something like populating. I think it would be an option to go for the code, but going for the engineering genius, yeah, definitely not bad. He does not have iron. He can use those rocks if he wants to go for any wonder here, especially Suez can be great. He might have 1 or 2 colonies in there. There's an ocean liner that's always pretty high value. The Harvard College is always pretty high value. So I can understand this EG and the hope to get an H2 government rather than just spending all the signs on Code of Laws now. Yeah, if he went for Code of Law now, which also I think is a possible play, then the H2 government would probably be at the cost of a revolution at some point. Or it would just take a while until he can afford to develop it peacefully. Oh yeah, by the way, he even went for, well, he built a the Bretton Circus, and he even went for a warrior. Couldn't afford a knight, rock-wise, so he went for a warrior. He goes to 9 strength, so Nickelback has to look out to be able to defend. I do draw 3 cards, and now, fingers crossed, do I draw the autonomous territory? No, I did not, and I already... Yeah, I see that an event. I don't know what it was. It's so clunky that I have to stop and then swap. Yeah, but it was no territory. It was some event. Barbarians has been revealed. Java has the most culture, but is not among the 2 weakest, so he dodged that. And yeah, what do I do here? Now we need patience again. The question is if I want to go to 3 civil actions, military actions, obviously. And sadly, I have no idea how much signs I have. But I do have 6 signs, and yeah, with not having drawn a territory now, I do actually think it's so important to go to the 3rd red cube. And it is a lot of my signs, but I do have a breakthrough. And yeah, I decide to go for the warfare. And the warfare is also, it enables the going for the Republic legitimately. And yeah, in total, in a vacuum, it's not that great of a card, but with all these reasons, especially with the reason that I want to draw a territory now, it comes in pretty handy, I think. So I go for that, I develop it. Also helps me defend. I mean, Java is at 9 strength, and it's just, yeah, it's more comfortable with this 3rd red cube, 1 extra strength. And I do populate and populate to get out of corruption, basically. I am not certain if I have seen, I do not think that I've seen a rebellion, so I'm actually pretty susceptible to that. Might have been an argument for theocracy, but I think the theocracy is a lot of commitment now. So yeah, fingers crossed that there is no rebellion, I guess. Sometimes it's just something you cannot really change that easily. And here I'm actually quite blessed. I do draw a vast and even autonomous, and I think autonomous is just a super good option going for the fifth red cube, for the fifth civil action, fourth red cube. And yeah, that's actually the third card that I enabled to draw. So yeah, pretty good. That plan worked out. I mean, it is quite likely to draw a colony in a reasonable time, like in 6. That's now 6 turns. I don't know it by heart. Last time I said the probability that I estimated was very wrong, but I think with colonies it's the same, right? I looked it up. It's 30%, I think, in 3 cards, or 33% to draw one, or 60% not to draw one, and then yeah, it's quite likely in 6 cards. Let's keep it at that. And then in 9 cards, it is even more likely. And I think even if you don't draw one in 12 cards, it's like 10% only chance to not draw one in 12 cards. And that's also still a reasonable time. So the Columbus gamble with the Colossus, I think, is pretty reasonable. But yeah, it can happen that you don't win it, and or that you lose the good bet, and then it's quite awful. Nickelback goes for the Breton Circus. So it kind of smells like a rebellion, but it doesn't have to mean that. I mean, they all have to be afraid of the possible rebellion, so uncertain. I do remember that I seeded immigration, and I'm not really well prepared for that. But maybe I can change it. Maybe it's in the back of those events, and until then, maybe I can change something about it. Nickelback still takes the Swordsman in hand. A reserves one, which I don't really like, but maybe, yeah, well, he's on these awkward 3 food, and he has no good way to get rid of that. So then the reserves makes a lot of sense. And even cultural heritage for 2. Yeah. And he also had to build the Breton Circus to fix the uprising, right? So, yeah. So you couldn't like go for iron instead or something. That was not a possibility. And there's actually another aggression, an enslave. And Nickelback had another defense card. This time 1 defense card was enough. But yeah, enslave would also have hurt a lot. And yeah, that's the thing. I mean, the open borders, it is supposed to be at a risk, right? You gain this red cube, and then there's this downside, quotation marks, that the other one has 2 more strength. But the red cube makes up for 1 more strength already. And this 1 extra strength, I think it's not enough of a downside. Offering the open borders is sadly a no-brainer. You will always do it, and the value is crazy. And the pact is just trash like that. It's not good. A decision should always come at the consideration, and there is no consideration. You just look at who do I offer it, who do I want to also benefit from this, and you do that. And thus, yeah, especially combined with this pact, gives just too much value. I don't like it at all. It's actually banned in our play group. We don't use it. It's just brain dead. Yeah. Java goes for another knight with Barbarossa. Actually, with Barbarossa? Yes. There's 3 food left, so I was a little confused, but that's how it is. And he actually goes for the cold for 3. Yeah, uncertain if he needs to pay 3 civil actions here for that. It's It's reasonable. Nickelback has a lot of civil actions, and he doesn't have the iron developed yet, so it's actually not that unlikely that he goes for the coal instead of the iron. That being said, there's also another coal, so there's 2 copies. He would get the other probably, but it's not clear when this would happen. And if he goes for the coal now, there's also what coming. That's possibly a possibility. It's possibly a possibility to go for what. And I can understand to take it for 3. What would be the options? Take the rich land, maybe efficient upgrades, and then he would be stuck with those cards. Well, he could use the rich land for irrigation, right? But yeah, then missing out on the coal, it would be a little sad. But the problem with this play is actually I see right now that his hand is full. Oh no, it's not. Library is here, so the hand is not full. He can go for the possible government that's going in. Yeah, even for that reason, didn't take a card. Is that correct? He had 1 civil action left. He didn't use it. And possibly for the reason not to break the hand and being able to go for the government, because there's no card he can just put away without losing signs. Yeah, it's a little sad. But it's a good decision, I think, to not make the hand full, so that you can go for a government, possibly. I think it's a good play. I go for Darwin here. I did use Columbus for the autonomous. Darwin is just neat. Gives 2 culture, some civil actions that are important, and possibly can give more culture in the future. So I elect him. I do build the Machu Picchu. Yeah, here I had the option to go for the Machu Picchu or to already go for scientific method. But I decided just to go for scientific method, possibly next turn. Maybe I can also go for the irrigation before scientific method. I can also possibly go for both. And yeah, it just felt a little better to go for this Machu Picchu right away. It also enables the chance of taking another wonder, possibly the Suez Canal, actually. So I went for that. I do play Medieval Army. It doesn't cost anything. There's another Medieval Army in the game, and it's just efficiency. If I go for the cavalryman at some point, I will just already have this tactic plate. I do draw another colony, so also a navigation could come in very handy at some point. Nickelback actually takes cavalrymen for 2, although he had knights already, but understandable decision. Cavalrymen are just so much better. They enable H3 tactics, and H3 tactics are so much better than H2 tactics, most of them. And yeah, understandable. He does go for it also. He plays resource for food and builds a cavalryman. And yeah, it was actually quite important for him to go for military. Maybe a knight would have also been enough. But there's still this open border, so possibly he needed that. Now it's 9 to 13, and he has 4 cubes, so yeah, he needed this 1 extra strength. Takes the efficient upgrade as last action, and that's super efficient. He's only on 3 rock income and can go for the iron next turn with an efficient upgrade. Feels good. Immigration revealed, so I do lose out on that. And here is actually interesting whether Yaba is willing to pay 2 civil actions for the scientific method, since it would hate draft it from me, deny it from me. But I think it's quite costly for him. He wants to do other things, and he does the other things. He goes for what? use Barbarossa. Barbarossa has been super valuable once more. It's just one of the best leaders. It's actually the leader with the best winning statistics in the game. And he goes for Watts. Takes Rifleman for 3. Wait, he could not. Yeah, he needed 4 rocks. I don't know. I don't know if the Rifleman for 3 is so reasonable. I think I would even prefer to take Harvard College or something. He's no need to defend. He doesn't have a war in hand, evidently. Riflemen are an important card, I agree, especially if you have 4 warriors. That's a lot of potential strength just by upgrading. But he already a swordsman. I don't like the Rifleman for 3 at all. He has an engineering genius. He could take Harvard, and then he would get rid of the handspace problem that we discussed last turn. If a possible government comes in, he could just build an engineering genius, has handspace, develop the government. Yeah. Totally don't like the Rifleman for 3. I do take team sports, so there's still this threat of rebellion, and here's just a nice situation where I can fix that, and I do that actually. It's a little sad that, as I said, there was this possibility that I actually still win the immigration, but it was not unlucky, but it was just the second card. Can call it a little unlucky, maybe. I still decide to go for that because it's 2 strength. It helps me defend actually, and yeah, still the possible rebellion actually. So I go for that. I build a warrior. I adopt the legion, and now I actually can defend. And for my last civil action, I take the scientific method. So I played very safe here by going for this. Yeah, for a lot of things that don't do that much for me right now. What I would have preferred is obviously to get scientific method going because I'm still on 2 science income. Get the irrigation going. It's super valuable with Machu Picchu. I decide for the safe turn because I think with the autonomous draw, I am in a pretty good spot actually. I should be in a pretty good spot. Yeah, I have Machu Picchu. I got the autonomous territory for free, so I can do safe turns. I think I don't have to take, yeah, very risky bets. Yeah, but having science income now and food income would also be kind of good. So it's actually not that clear if I made the right decision, in my opinion. What do you think? It's not that clear. I mean, probably it is correct. If I get hit by the rebellion and with the autonomous territory, it's actually also kind of hard to avoid corruption, and I would only have 1 civil action. Maybe I could have done something like just building a religion so that I mitigate the impact of a possible rebellion, and then still go for scientific method and not spend my entire turn. But on the other hand, yeah, not being able to defend would also be. He did draw 2 H2 cards now, and if I build a scientific method and he rates it, it's also GG. So I think it's reasonable to have this safe turn here. Nickelback does decide to go for coal. Second coal was not far away from the first one. And he actually goes for it with an efficient upgrade. Feels super good. Gets a selective breeding and a reasonable timing. Misses out on the first cannon, but it's only the first cannon, and he has cavalryman, he has swordsman. Does go for the phalanx. And needs one defense card actually to defend. Yeah, but does not try an aggression. Maybe it doesn't have one. There's this cultural influence. And we see what's working very well here. Now he decides to go for the Harvard still. And cannot take the cannon. Yeah. Or wave. Or architecture. Or the Reveille. Because he took rifleman for 3. That was a mistake, in my opinion. But it still looks kind of good. He just needs to get the government soon. It's actually a little unlucky, I guess, especially if you are on 4 civil actions. I mean, it's also true for me. I just was lucky with the territory, with the autonomous territory, but very late governments. It's 4 government cards, and it's already half of the deck. Or maybe not, a little less than half of the deck is gone, but definitely late governments. I cede the territory. Actually, what happened to the Suez? I think I was in no position to take it, right? Maybe last turn I could have considered it, but it would have been my entire turn or something. And I thought economy was not my concern that much. Border conflict revealed. I do dodge that. Nickelback loses that. I can take the cannon for free. And, for 1 civil action and go for scientific method. Can upgrade it twice, so I have a great science income now and take the breakthrough. So it looks good. Definitely looks good. I do want to get the irrigation going soon. But overall, I'm actually pretty happy with my position here. Build another warrior to not be weakest. And I did seed a colony right now, so it's always I don't mind building warriors if I seed colonies. I can even consider sending this entire legion for the vast territory. I draw some strength events, that's also pretty nice, and a colonization card, so pretty good draw here. I don't want independence declaration in there. That might be the worst offender of them all with the autonomous territory, but also the other events I will probably not win, and it's pretty nice to see them. Nickelback goes for swordsman. He doesn't want to be the weakest. And he actually lost food from the border conflict. Upgrade swordsman. And has the classic army, so that's the perfect tactic. And goes for ocean liner service. Yeah. Grabs the rich land. Yeah, why not? I mean, it's kind of expensive. And he does have selective breeding in hand. But it's still a pretty good wonder. So, yeah, uncertain. I don't know if I would go for this, but it can be good. It's difficult turn. Definitely a difficult turn with a lot of options. See, there are some very good yellow cards here. There's an opera, actually. So, not that easy to decide. So, finally, government dropped, and Java goes for that instantly. And can upgrade the coal 2 times more. James Watt doing a lot of work. And there's even a rev idea that's pretty good. He can go for the Harvard College next turn. Did not take the selective reading. Could not really take it, I guess. What did he? Yeah, the common was on 2. Yeah. He still has irrigation in hand. And also there's 2 mechanized agricultures. And maybe actually the selective breeding won't even be gone. I'm not very certain about that. Depends on how many cards we take. I take, actually. I would have to take 2 now. Let's see if I do that. I go for the irrigation. I cannot actually take the cannon, so it would be strategy and frugality, and I don't really want strategy when I have warfare, so probably I won't deny him the selective breeding. Upgrade food-wise, and take architecture for 1 civil action. Super important card. And the frugality. To have to take corruption. That's the one downside with the vast, the autonomous territory. Corruption is not that easy to avoid sometimes. I mean, I do have this extra blue cube from the Machu Picchu, but it also produces more, so it's not that easy to avoid sometimes. Nickelberg reveals the inhabited territory, and I'm willing to bid 6, just with all the defense cards. Super good territory. Yeah. It actually means... I think I also realized that in the game too late, that it's a little greedy since I cannot defend, and he might try an aggression on me. I think in his position, I would always try it if I had an impactful aggression now. Nickelback goes for Teresa, very good leader, especially with the ocean liner. And takes a strategy. Yeah. He did upgrade the foods. Selective breeding to fix consumption issues, starvation issues. So it was 1 - 1, right? That's 2 more food. Maybe he can wait 1 more turn and upgrade the coal instead, but then he has to upgrade it next turn. I'm not certain. Probably better to be done with that. Uncertain borders revealed. I do lose 1 of the yellow cubes that I just gained, and that's maybe one of the scenarios where you don't try the aggression. Probably you knew that it's here, and depending on what card he could now play, since it's also not impossible that I have another defense card, then it might be a close decision whether to try an aggression or not. So he still gets the selective reading. That worked out quite well, and just goes for that. Plays the EG as not to lose it, but cannot finish the wonder. Yeah, I might consider upgrading 1 less and finishing it, but he also... Does he need that? He has bread and circus. I don't know if he needs this. So maybe it's overall a little more elegant to finish the wonder and upgrade 1 less. Maybe that's a minor thing. I take the cavalryman. Pretty important, I would say. It's not that likely that he wants it, but he might decide to hate draft it from me. And also I think I have to build some military right now, so I just go for that. Also right before H3 starts, so it's pretty good to use military actions now, sooner than later. And I take the Republic. There will be the option where I don't go for that and just go for an H3 government, depending on how soon it drops, but having the Republic in hand is definitely a good option. And yeah, I had the decision to make whether to build cavalrymen or cannon, and maybe even not take them. But I did have the Hussars, and now I have drawn the fortification. So in hindsight, would have been glad to go for the cannons, but it's a close call. And yeah, if I hadn't drawn that and someone starts to go for a war, then could have been bad to go for the cannons. Nickelback goes for... Does Seed reveal the crime wave? Java and I lose. Another blue cube. The blue cube actually hurts more than the 3 culture. I already miss 1 in total, and now I miss 2. That does hurt. It's always kind of rough to fix corruption. And yeah, maybe instead of going for this Republican hand, I could have considered just going for the justice system. Could have been a good option, especially with the blue cubes. And then just say, I will go for an H3 government, or even the common is also still in the game. I think that was an option I should have considered more carefully, and maybe even gone for. And yeah, Nickelback finishes the ocean liner. It's a little awkward that he still has this coal unupgraded, but he can now probably take the efficient upgrade and go for another upgrade next turn. And does take the justice system. Java reveals a freedom of movement. He goes for another Brandon Circus, finishes the Harvard College, takes a breakthrough, plays Revideer, and he wears Rifleman. He does want to get stronger. And he even adopts the tactic. Not certain if that's so needed. Yeah, H3 cards, drawing H3 cards is a pretty cool thing. And if he didn't need to defend, and it's now 5 extra strength. Yeah, he did overtake me strength-wise with that. Yeah, that is an argument, right? I guess that's a good argument. Last turn is to take EG. Understandable. Pretty late for journalism. Maybe you can consider take journalism. Still good. Would still be a good option to build journalism now. But he can also go for the H3 buildings. He has a good rock income. So can understand the EG. I probably would have preferred taking a journalism in hand and then seeing how this develops, whether Nickelback tries to be very aggressive or not, and squeezing out 1 journalism now, pretty good win condition. I do go for the Hussars now. I did go for the cavalrymen, so I populate, and I do go for the Republic. There's no other government here, and the civil actions are still just super worth a lot. And I built another arena. Don't want to lose those possible happy face related events. That's also an option where I'm not weakest, but I don't give him extra rocks, which look pretty good for him. Those extra Teresa rocks. So I do take journalism in hand. A reserves and the rifleman. So with this setup, I can go for any A3 tactic that I might draw. They are better in the sense that I don't have that much abundant science, better than the modern infantry. So I decide to go for those. And the last civil action is also just the reserves. I do have abundant civil actions now, so those reserves are just nice to have. Ravages of Time revealed, and I did not play that, and it's also such a good event for me since the Colossus did all of his work, and now turning those 2 strength into 2 culture income, super neat. And yeah, I mean, I cannot evaluate the opportunity cost of seeding that, but one of those seeded that, and it's definitely the best for me, for the Colossus player. Turning the pyramids into 2 culture income is also often not that bad, but in this situation it is not that great since he goes down to 5 civil actions. It's better when you have like such a civilization with a republic or something. Then this extra 2 culture per turn is more important than 1 civil action. But here it's not that clear. So I wonder if Nickelback played it or Yaba. Yeah, losing this 1 science income. It's not that great, but it's actually, yeah, towards the end of the game, the 1 culture that you gain is actually maybe somewhat similar to the science. So, yeah. But it's unclear for me who played that. And as I said, it's hard to evaluate the opportunity cost that, or the opportunity gain that they had by playing that event in that situation. Nickelback builds a swordsman, does use the extra rock of Nickelback, of Teresa, upgrades the coal, and just goes for fast food chains. Yeah, actually not that much to do. He does not have that much science to go for democracy. He might consider a revolution, taking this now and just revolution it next turn. Definitely a good consideration, but it would still cost a lot of science with 9 science, and he only has 4 science income. And yes, fast food chains just super solid wonder. It always does the something like 22, 23 with a notion liner, maybe something like 25 culture, and that's pretty solid. Vast territory revealed, and I'm actually bidding a lot, 9, and the warriors I wanted to get rid of anyway. They are of no real use. And then there's an additional cavalryman and defense card. I guess it's a close call whether that's worth it. I also lose another blue cube, and that might be the biggest problem of that play. And yeah, I'm not really certain if that's worth it. Yeah, let's leave it at that. It's really unclear to me if that's a correct move here, because that's actually a lot of value here. A lot of rocks, a lot of civil actions to populate, and so on and so on. Yeah, I mean, that being said, it would be pretty good for both of them. And it's also still good for me. It's still unclear. Let's leave it at that. I'm not very certain if that's the correct decision to bid that much. Yawa goes for Air Forces, one of the 2 copies, so it's always a consideration to bid, to spend a lot of civil actions for that. And It's probably correct, especially with the classical army. It's very valuable. And interestingly, he still goes for, takes the oil. And also goes for that. So he even builds one. Yeah, he goes from 9 to 14. And that's actually, I think that's actually super good. Makes James Watt even more valuable, and this 14 rock income is just early enough for that to matter a lot. And he has food income, he has rock income, and he's very versatile now in where he can go. He can have a very good military. He has enough science for that also. And possibly with the Harvard College, there's also those Rev ideas that you can also take and just play. But he can also just start building multimedias. That would also be super awesome. So yeah, I do like this play a lot. Even building one, not the measly upgrades, in quotation marks measly, but he just builds one. That's bold. I like it. That's a pretty cool move. And upgrades one more warrior. Efficiency thing here. Looks good. And there's an economic progress, which makes this play, probably he played that. That would be very reasonable that he played that. And yeah, that's actually quite sad for me. I only get 2 rocks, a lot of food that I don't need that much. And that's definitely an insane value event for Yaba, especially. I do build 2 cavalrymen, so I can defend, actually. I take the military theory in hand. And military build-up. And efficiency-wise, I play reserve some food and populate once more. I have a bunch of population. Yeah, at some point I do want to go for some culture income probably, but it looks like I also have to be very careful as not to die to possible wars. So military build-up, a very valuable card. Military theory also. And I also do like my position here, but at some point we can compare. This 14 rock income is actually pretty insane. So yeah, if I look at this, I mean, it's kind of close. I have more civil actions. I have a leader that does a little more now, possibly. Since, well, Yaba, the James Watt has already provided the value, and he will possibly still provide some value by upgrading, and also gives this 5 culture then. But it's, I think both situations are quite good, and I think, yeah, it's unclear. Would I want to swap 26 rocks in hand? Probably his position is a little better. And then there's Nickelberg, and his position is also good. He has also 14 rocks in hand, 7 income. He has a wonder already. He has the problem of civil actions. Yeah, so maybe his position is actually a little worse than ours, I would say. But it's not that clear, as many things are in Through the Ages. And yeah, that was my turn. I to draw a classical, the modern army. That's a nice draw. If things go military heavy, then I have a good option here. Even if I miss out on the other copy of Air Forces that can also defend without Air Forces. Nickelberg reveals national pride. I barely managed to win that. It's nice for me. Use Ocean Liner service, builds a cavalryman. Yeah, basically you want to build a military unit every turn, because she gives that extra rock. And he has a lot of military actions and threatens a war, basically. develops just a system to go back to 6 civil actions, takes the reserves, and yeah, then probably the other reserves also, and rockets. Yeah, all understandable. It's probably a little unrealistic to go for one of these governments, so he looks to threaten a war, I guess. Upgrades the coal once more. And Java is having none of this war thing, and interestingly just decides to go for Gandhi here. What has done its work? He even decides not to upgrade more, and I think that's also reasonable. It would be a lot of cost civil action-wise for, yeah, he will have enough rocks for the rest of the game. So I think I like the decision not to upgrade more. Just goes for Gandhi. He doesn't want to compete for war and just takes computers for 3. Doesn't even try to populate and get out of corruption or something. Yeah, I don't know if he needs the computers for 3 here, since it's pretty likely that he will get the opportunity to build movies or multimedia. How good's the computer? I won't take the computers. He might take computers Bill Gates, actually. He might take computers Bill Gates. So I do understand that he wants to. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe I will take Bill Gates, actually. Yeah, no, I'm not a huge fan of these computers for 3 for the heavy corruption. I don't know if that was necessary. I see the iconoclasm revealed, and I think the more reason to just go for Bill Gates now. Pretty good, actually. I do like this. I can also go for another lab. I also go to 14 rock income. And I have good science, I have good rocks, good food. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. Develop the cannon and build cannon. Yeah, still have to be a little afraid of possible war. I think Nickelback's in a position where he can go for a second classical army. And with both reserves, he will probably even be able to. No, he does not have science for air forces, but he could declare war with the second classical army, and that would also already be a lot of strength. So I do have to be on the lookout for possible war. And I also would have to be somewhat on the lookout for some culture income soon. So yeah, it's hard to balance that. There's only that much you can do in a turn, even with those many civil actions. For the last civil action, I take the reserves. It doesn't look like the best internet game yet. And 3 civil actions were pretty expensive in this turn. So what will be my other options? Actually just the United Nations and the Manhattan Project. And yeah, possibly a Red Cross. I do have reserves and decent food income. But yeah, might have been worth to consider more this internet for 3 civil actions. But I don't. This internet right now is pretty bad. It would mean that I would have to build some journalisms also. And it's not clear at all if I ever am allowed to do that in this game, depending on what Nickelback will do. And also, actually, maybe those movies would have been an important consideration. Yeah. Politics of Strength revealed. Very good for Nickelback, not so good for Yaba. And we see that he just decides to go for Kuwatin. And I actually remember I went for Gates, and it looked super natural, but possibly I should have gone for Coubertin. Would have been 4 culture income, and this 8 extra culture I could have taken once. And this is 6 rock income. And it's close. It's not that many turns left. And I will have to somehow translate this rock income into culture income to make up for the 4 culture income I would have just gotten. But yeah, also this makes me more versatile regarding war. One important argument would have been that Gates would not be so good for him, but he could also still go for Churchill. It would have been pretty decent. So it's not clear. Gates was there on 1. I was very quickly convinced that that was correct, but in hindsight, I thought, I think in the moment where he just took it here and played it, I thought it might have been more correct to go for Coubertin, actually. Yeah, who knows? Nickelberg goes for Coubertin, plays it, and elects him and takes multimedia for 3. So he will still have the option to go for war, possibly even with air forces next turn, but he also now has the possibility to just build multimedia. So he has 2 possible paths to victory here. Yeah, overall, very good. Very well played here, in my opinion. It would have been, I think, also kind of alluring to just take a rev idea and urban growth instead or something, but I do think grabbing this multimedia is quite important. Quite a good option. Efficiency-wise, builds a swordsman, and even the cavalryman does force a reaction, especially from me, but also a little from Yaba. He does also not just want to lose to aggressions now. But yeah, I definitely have to do more about it if it's equal, if we stay on this strength. If we somehow both decide to not do anything about it, then I am the more likely target, obviously. And Yaba just decides to do something about it by taking Manhattan. I was a little sad about it because it would have been a decent wonder for me, I think. I would have liked to build that now. But yeah, he just takes it, plays the engineering and builds it probably, yeah. It's, still has 19 rocks left. Takes some movies. And that's the turn. Again, for corruption, that's not so important. But we see this computer's last turn was a little awkward. That was a little awkward. And Cold War, Nickelback and Yaba win that. And I decide to go for journalism. 2 journalisms. Develop rifleman, play military builder, possibly. Or not. Oh, yeah. Well, military build-up would have meant corruption. I remember. I thought about this turn so long. And actually, it is super close. No, I think I'm confusing something now, maybe. I'm not very certain. It's maybe I'm confusing something with another game, but I think if I'm not mistaken, if I didn't go for journalism, and I think that was an option I considered just to go for military and hope for the second air forces for me, then I could have threatened the war on Nickelberg if I get the second air forces. But I was missing some rocks or something for that. And in the end, I remember this developing the rifleman makes no sense. It's just a blunder. There is no reason to develop rifleman. I considered very many options of turns, and somehow I had the notion that I had to develop rifleman as not to lose them, possibly before he declares war, but it would be next turn, and losing rifleman that the probability that these 15 cards are gone until my turn is quite low. It's actually almost impossible, I think. And yeah, just a blunder to develop those riflemen. I could have taken Urban Grove, e.g. anything here instead of doing that. Especially now that I've drawn this tactic. Yeah, historic territory is revealed. I have a pretty good tactic to bid on that. And I do win it with the Hussars and 2 conversation cards. Here's obviously shown that he isn't declaring a war this turn. Might still be an option next turn, but it was definitely okay to bid the Hussars on this important territory, I think. And yeah, Nickelback just goes for a multimedia and also an arena. And like this, he's actually not threatening war anymore. That's a good thing to know, I guess. There's an inhabited territory that's not that important for me. They are actually willing to bid quite a lot. And yeah, but just develops movies, and now bam, bam, engineering, rocks, and bam, 3 movies just went to 17 culture income. That's actually something like an H3 wonder, right? 12 per turn, and it will be. It might be only 2 turns, then it's still 24 culture. It might be 3 turns even. It's not that clear whether the game ends now or not. Or the H. And impact of government revealed. It's quite good for me. Government's also not an impact that has insane swings. Es rastet nicht aus. Also government's always something like 3, 4, 5 culture for someone compared to the others. And I go for the military theory. I do take the International Red Cross. Since I don't have a good United Nations. And this will probably still be more culture than nations. It's not clear. It's even not that clear whether it's correct to take it at all, because it's a lot of civil actions, and maybe I should have just built more journalisms, but I can also only build 1 journalism. Probably I still do that even. I have to defend. I do that. I'm even strongest. So no journalism now, but yeah, I will be able to build 3 turns of the Red Cross. There's some colonies in the game, so it is, what is it actually? It's 1824, but they also gain 6, so it's something like an 18 culture wonder. If he decides to play reserves on food and build the stage. And he will always build the stage. So it's something like an 18 culture wonder. But nations would have also been only 16 if I bet the religion. And it can be a little better if I draw impact, but I don't know if I draw an impact. So there's actually also not that many impacts that I would win. Science. Yeah, it's a close call. And if we look at this, maybe I have to be a little more gambly here than taking this Red Cross. Maybe I have to gamble on the good nations. I'm not certain. It's not that easy of a decision. And what definitely would have been better is, for example, also to just build movies now or something. But I don't have movies. There's no movies in the row. There's still one in game. Also multimedia. That's two options that I would have probably preferred. Improve impacts. Possible impacts. Yeah, there's just somehow there's no good turn here. And I'm really not convinced if that's correct, but maybe it's the best I could do here. Yeah. And in hindsight, I wish I would have taken movies at some point. I did also sadly not draw an impact. I have not put too much focus in this review on the impacts I had, but I do know that I didn't really draw good impacts. And in such a game, that's kind of crucial. Everything is kind of close. It's kind of crucial to draw some good impacts. But admittedly, I'm also not that well prepared to most impacts compared to the other guys. So there's industry, obviously, that's insane for him. He just made sure that he wins culture. My technology is not that good. Progress is not that good. Architecture is okay. But their architecture is also not bad. So that's kind of equal. And the only thing I would win is science. And right now, possibly strength. And yeah, strength I will possibly always stay ahead of Yaba. But yeah, I think the government was by me, and there was maybe also an impact of happiness that I seeded. I'm not that sure. But yeah, impact of colonies obviously would have been a very good draw. But if I look at this, I probably needed good impact draw, and as I said, there's not that many good impacts. Let's see at Nickelback's turn. And yeah, he did it really well. This multimedia for 3 really paid out. He did go for the food play and built the stage, which is also obviously, he has the Red Cross, the ocean liner. He doesn't really need the food. He still gets his population. And yeah, in hindsight also, I think we can agree that the ocean liner did a lot of work, and at that moment I was not too certain if it was needed with the selective breeding in hand, but in hindsight, it's just a good wonder. Just a very good wonder. 1 extra civil action per turn, food population for 3. It did a lot of work. And Nickelback goes for the rockets, or develops rockets for possible impact of technology, I guess. And the game actually ends. That I made sure of, I think. With both of them having a lot of more culture income. There's impact of happiness. I think I see that. That's also one of the reasons why I was willing to bid a lot for the territory, for the historic territory. And yeah, we see it's super close. Java can actually still just go for the wonder, which is kind of insane. He builds it for 16 culture, and yeah, evaluates impact of culture. So that was pretty nice for him, and possibly a reason in hindsight where I had to prioritize, yeah, the United Nations over the Red Cross, because in the if we swap it, he would also only that's not true. He would have been able to take and finish that. So for him, it would be 36 culture actually. Yeah. And now this was 30 culture. But also it was 7 culture for Neckeberg on me. So it's unclear. Maybe I should have prioritized that, but with the premise that Java was probably always winning. Maybe I had to play against Nickelback, and then against Nickelback it could have been better to go for the nations. Yeah, but it's still close, I guess. But with that wonder, second H3 wonder, and a really good one, he looks like he's on a winning track. Those 3 movies, super good. And I proposed this peace strategy, and then the moment I proposed it, 1 moment later, I realized that, okay, that makes no sense because he will not have another turn. So it would just be 1 culture for me. And my logic was, I'm playing against Nickelback. I want to win against Nickelback, and that makes no sense to propose it to him. So I have to propose it to the other guy, right? But yeah, obviously that made no sense. And I do go for the movies. I can build 1 movie and finish the Red Cross. Go to 132 culture. There's an impact of wonders, which is okay. I think, yeah, as we see also, I only have to look at Nickelback, but also Nickelback is probably just ahead of me. He builds the fast food chains, scores 24 culture, and still gets the 11 culture income. So going into impacts, he's 8 culture ahead of me. It's not impossible, but the first one's impact of industry. He did hit that, and I got rid of all my iron because I needed people. And yeah, that's already 9 for Nickelback, and it already doesn't look too good. Variety, small, 2 culture for me. Harmony, also not good. Also the fact that I deleted 3 iron already cost me a lot of culture. And interestingly, we see Nickelback overtaking Yaba here with an impact of competition. It's very good impacts for him. Harmony was very good. Competition is a 12 culture swing, and the last one is strength, actually. So Nickelback was actually the one to win it, and not Yaba. Yeah. Interesting game, in my opinion. Super good. I'm not certain. There was some minor mistakes by me in the end. I think this developing rifleman, I think it had a huge impact, actually. Losing 1 civil action, every civil action I think was crucial. Every decision in H3 was crucial, and there probably was 1 situation where I could or should have taken movies. Well, actually, I don't really remember if that that is true, but the journalism was just not enough. And also in hindsight, the Gates versus Kubata, I think evidently Kubata would have been better. But it's also not that easy to say because I might have lacked some rocks to defend from possible aggressions and wars. Nickelback would have gone probably for Churchill and just went on with war. And yeah, super close game, super interesting game. I thought going into H3 I had a super good position with the autonomous that I had, with the super good Machu Picchu, and somehow it wasn't enough, but it's also very close. I mean, if I had this impact of science and there was no impact of culture and industry and harmony, it's like it was really the worst impacts for me, I might also be second or even win. It's a super close game and super interesting game. And yeah, this group keeps on proving to be very interesting. And as I said, cannot count me out, cannot count anyone out and anyone in. Nickelback, we saw before the game had 1 game less, and now still 1 game less, and gets 5 win score points from that for the group, and that means he closed the gap to 1 point. And yeah, we will see if it will be enough for me. Yeah, thanks for watching, and see you on the next game. And it will be very interesting if I can make it in this group. Yeah, see ya.